welcome to Solar Power World Solar Speaks Live interviews here in the Unirac booth at Solar Power International 2015. I'm Kelly Pickerel, Associate Editor of Solar Power World, and today I'm with Mary Rottman. She is President of SEIA, the Solar Energy Finance Association. So thanks for joining us today, Mary.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Maybe we could start off with, you could tell me a little bit about SEIA, the organization. What are your goals?
Absolutely. SEIA, Solar Energy Finance Association, we started about a couple years ago, it was really, there was a group of us from the solar industry and from the capital markets that decided we were going to crack the code for financing distributed solar, mainly the rooftop, residential, and C&I solar. So we were also very active in the Solar Access to Public Capital project, which was funded by the Department of Energy with NREL. And the whole idea was, how do you make more capital accessible to the solar industry? Let's really boost the installations. And so we realized we had to tap the deeper capital markets. And to do that, we we partnered with the capital markets and became a trusted source of information. So the group of us that we were key thought leaders, both on the capital markets and solar, got together and said, let's form an association. So we're a trade association based in California, where our membership is about 40. Our board consists of all the major distributed solar developers, which is fabulous. And our mission really is to increase capital flow to the industry and also to provide educational opportunities to both the investor community, key stakeholders, and the developers. The idea is that if they start actually adhering to standards of practices such as standard financial contracts, best practices in installation and O&M, the financial people will be a lot more comfortable and they'll see less risk. So they'll be a lot more excited about investing. So that's what we're all about.
Okay, great. So what's the challenge today with financing?
Well, the key thing with financing really is in the commercial market as well as the residential. There's so much of the financing is tied up in a few investors that are tax equity investors, and that's a 30+% of the capital stack for these transactions. And there's just a very few players and fewer for the DG projects. So that's the biggest challenge, and it's all dependent on the investment tax credit, which, as many people know, is going away at the end of 2016. So it's, again, capital and the comfort level of mainly banks to really provide lending to this industry.
All right. So how will the potential ITC expiration, how is that going to affect financing for solar?
It's going to have an effect. There's no question about it. I think you probably report on it, all the major trade magazines, and developers are planning for it. You'll see a rush of projects this year, so all the resources are being tied up. At the same time, they're looking at the following year. There will be a lot less that they'll be able to do, so they're holding back on their expenses. In the utility industry, which we're not as focused on, I've seen projections as high as 50% reduction in projects. I do think this is temporary, though. Everyone will adjust. It will still be 10%. So there's still some there. I do think the DG side will be able to adjust a little bit better or easier because their margins are a little bit higher. Yeah.
So how is financing the residential market? How has it changed over the past few years?
Well, it's really very interesting because the explosion of the residential market happened because of the development of the solar lease. And that really allowed customers to get into a solar product with very little or no money down and save money immediately on their energy bill. And so that lease really pioneered, and particularly here in California, where 80% of all the residential solar was installed, it was a direct result of the products developed by Solar City, Sunrun, and even SunPower, the PPA and the lease. So what's happened, though, and a lot of that had to do with the cost of solar was expensive, the systems themselves, and those particular products made it affordable. Now the cost has come down, actually since the inception of the ITC, it's actually come down about 70%, but since 2010 it's come down about, I think it's about 60-some% since 2010 in the residential side. It's now affordable to actually own a system. So you're seeing this huge proliferation of solar loans. And I think that's going to be actually eclipsing solar leases going forward. We'll still have the lease product, but ownership, and possibly ownership with storage, is the next frontier. Yeah.
So how can the industry as a whole join together to kind of standardize financing so that we can get more solar online?
That's my favorite question because it really is about looking at working together and looking at how can the industry really be the type of industry that people want to invest in, banks want to lend to. Basically, wearing down the rough edges of an industry that's always been very innovative and rapid growth and very technology focused, making people understand that this is an asset class that's very safe, it's here to stay, it's very low maintenance, and the demand will continue. So by working on the things that SEIA promotes, which is really what we're about, is, as we always say, nobody competes on the legal form of your contract. Basically, all of the guts of a contract are the same because it's defined by the legal and the regulatory side. So the standard contract is probably the best thing to go with first, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel and the investor doesn't have to reinvent looking at it. And then using practices that have all the best approaches and respecting your customer and treating them right. These are the things that when the industry works together, competes based on their unique product set as opposed to these little administrative issues, they'll do much better. Yeah. So.
Well, I want to thank Mary for joining us today. You guys were listening to Solar Speaks Live here in the UNIRAC booth at Solar Power International, and be sure to stop back for more interviews throughout the week.